Hey, welcome back. In this lecture, we're going to create a join game session blueprint callable function that we can call from our character class and get started setting up some functionality for finding and joining game sessions. This will involve creating a delegate for onFind sessions completed, which will be fired or broadcast in response to calling the session interface function find sessions. This is going to involve creating some search settings, so we'll see how to set those up as well. So let's jump right in. So the first thing we need to do is create our blueprint callable function join game session. So here's my menu system project, and in menu system character.h, I'd like to create another blueprint callable function, and this will be linked to one of our keyboard keys, likely the 2 key. So I'm going to make a void function called join game session. And I can copy the uFunction macro here and paste it so that this function is blueprint callable. Now we can quickly make a definition for this function. So we have a function body here. Now in this function, we're going to first find sessions. So I'm going to add a comment here and say find game sessions. So we're going to be calling the session interface function find sessions in here. Now, in order to find sessions, we're going to need to create a delegate and a callback function for the delegate for finding game sessions. So that will be our next step. So just like the session interface function create session, the interface function find sessions has a delegate associated with it. So we're going to create a delegate variable just like we did for create session. Now, the type for this delegate is f on find sessions complete delegate. So we can call this delegate find sessions complete delegate. And we're going to need a callback function for this as well. So we can stick that up here in the protected section just under on create session complete. Now this will be a void function and it will be called on find sessions complete. And the type of function that can be bound to a delegate of this type must take a Boolean input parameter. So we'll put in a bool input called b was successful. And this Boolean is simply going to reflect the success or failure for finding game sessions. Now I can create a definition for this callback as well. And this function will be called in response to the delegate broadcast sent by the session interface once the action of finding sessions has been completed. So now that we have a delegate and a callback, it's time to actually bind the callback to our delegate. So we'll do that now. Now we've already bound a function to a delegate. We're going to do the same thing up in the constructor, just like we did for the create session complete delegate. So just under the colon here, before the constructor body, we've initialized our first delegate. We're going to place a comma just after that, and we're going to initialize our second delegate right here. And we're going to do this the same way we did the last delegate. So we're going to say find sessions complete delegate and have some parentheses here. And the f on find sessions complete delegate class also has the create uObject function. So we're going to say f on find sessions complete delegate double colon create uObject. And we need a user class, so we can use this. And just like we did before, we're going to use the this class type def, followed by the name of our callback function we created, which is called on find sessions complete. So we're using create uObject to construct a new delegate object of this type f on find sessions complete delegate. And as we initialize it, we're passing into that constructor the user object and the callback function. So we have effectively bound our function to our new delegate. So now that we've constructed the delegate and bound our callback function to it, it's time to start setting up some session search settings, which will be required once we call the session interface function find sessions. Now here's the Unreal Engine documentation for F-Online Session Search. This class has a number of session search settings that we can set when we call find sessions. And we'll see that its include is online session settings.h. Now, we've already included online session settings.h, so that's already taken care of. So down here in our join game session blueprint callable function, we can start getting set up to call the session interface function find sessions. Now this is going to involve using the fonline session search class type. Now we're going to create a shared pointer to wrap this. So we're going to say t shared ptr fonline session search, and we'll call this session search. And we can initialize this using make shareable. So inside of make shareable, we'll use the new keyword with fonline session search with the parentheses, that's the constructor, and now we have a t-shared pointer storing our online session search. Now we're going to set a couple of settings on the session search. So we're going to say session search using the arrow operator, and the first variable I'd like to set is max search results. Now, normally we'd only want a few search results, but we're using the DevApp ID 480, which is shared among lots of people who are using this DevApp ID because they don't have their own DevApp ID. Remember, 480 is the DevApp ID for Space War, the example Steam game designed to allow people to see how Steam's services work. So we're going to set the max search results to a high number because there's a good chance that we'll find lots of sessions when we search for them. These will be sessions used by other developers using the DevApp ID 480. Now, our session search also has a variable called bIsLANQuery. Now, we're going to set this to false because we're not using LAN. And finally, we're ready to call find sessions. Now, this means we're going to need to check the online session interface pointer, and we'll do that up at the top. So we're going to say if, and I'm going to use the negation operator here, followed by online session interface dot is valid. So if the online session interface is not valid, I can simply return at this point. Now, down at the bottom of the function, I'm ready to call find sessions, and that's going to be on the online session interface. So we're going to say online session interface, and the function is find sessions. Now, we can see with the pop-up that we need this funique net ID again, which means we'll need to get that first local player from the controller. We did that up here in create game session by creating a const pointer of type uLocalPlayer and using getWorld get first local player from controller. So I'm going to copy that line and paste it down here. So now we have that local player. So to get that unique net ID, we're going to use the dereference operator followed by local player get preferred unique net ID. Now the next input is a search settings of type fonline session search, but notice it comes in as a t-shared ref. We have a t-shared pointer, but we can convert this to a shared ref by saying session search dot to shared ref. Now, we could have made a shared ref from the start, but the reason I'm making shared pointers to wrap these is because we later plan on making these variables on this class so that we can access information on them later. But we can easily get that t-shared ref smart wrapper type from a t-shared pointer with two shared refs, so that's not a big deal. Now we're calling find sessions, and when find sessions has been completed, we're going to want our callback function called in response, which means we need our delegate added to the session interface's delegate list. So we can do that up here before we create our session search variable. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to say online session interface, and we're going to use the function add on find sessions complete delegate underscore handle. And of course, this takes the delegate, which we called find sessions complete delegate. So we're going to pass that in. So find sessions complete delegate. And now we've added our delegate to the delegate list. And once find sessions has completed, our callback will be called. Now, the last thing I'd like to do is make sure that we've actually found some sessions. So let's go down to on find sessions complete. Now, I mentioned that we'd like to make this session search a variable so we can access its information later. We're going to want to access it in our callback function on find sessions complete. And the reason for this is this type fonline session search contains a variable called search results. Here's the documentation again, and if I go down, I'll see that we have a T-array called search results. It says an array of all sessions found when searching for the given criteria. And it's a T-array storing the type fonline session search result. So we're going to get our search results from this session search, which means it does need to be a member variable. It cannot be a local variable. So I'm going to copy it and add this as a private variable here in our private section. So I'm going to paste it in here. So we'll have a T-shared pointer of this type fonline session search, and here in join game session, rather than declare a new local variable, I'm going to delete the data type and just access our private session search member variable. And we're going to also access it down here in onFindSessionsComplete because we want those search results. So we're going to say session search and access search results. Now, if I hover over search results, we see it's a T-array, which means we can loop through this array. So I'm going to use a for loop. So we'll say for auto result in session search results. So we'll loop through the T-array of fonline session search results and do something for each result. So there's some information we can get from these search results. For example, I can get the session ID string with result.getSessionIdStr. And you'll see that this function returns an f string, so I can change this auto to f string. We can also get the owning username for the session. That's also going to be an f string, so we can call this user, and this will be from result.session.owning_user_name. And we see that session is an fonline session. So each of these search results contain a variable of type fonline session. So once we've found some sessions, we can loop through the sessions we found and print them to the screen. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll say if gengine add on screen debug message. Now, just like before, we'll use -1 for the key, 15.f for the time to display, and we'll use the f color cyan for this one, and we can add an f string. So I'm going to use f string printf, and in the text macro, I'm going to say ID %s, comma, user %s, and I'm going to need to pass in a couple of C-style strings to format these with. So I'm going to use the asterisk operator with ID and the asterisk operator with user to convert those to C-style strings. And there's my semicolon right there. So once we've found sessions, we can print some data that we've retrieved from each of the sessions that we've found. Now, before we can test this out, there's one more setting we need on our session search. Since we're using presence, we have to specify that in our search settings. So we're going to say session search, and session search has something called query settings. If we hover over it, it says the query to use for finding matching servers. We're using presence, so we're going to say query settings.set. So there's this setter function, and it's expecting a key, and there exists a macro called search_presence. And if we hover over this macro, we see that it expands to an f name that says presence search. Now, for query settings, when searching for sessions, there will be a form of comparison operation involved. This query setting search presence, we are specifying for that to be true, and the comparison operator we're using is defined in an enum called eOnlineComparisonOp for operator. So we'll use the double colon and select the enum constant equals. So when we call find sessions and we pass in our session search, we've set the query settings to make sure that any sessions we find are using presence, and this is how we do that. So let's go ahead and compile this. I'm going to jump back into the editor and open third-person character. Now, we've already tied our Blueprint callable function create game session to the 1 key. I'm going to right-click, type keyboard, and select the 2 key, and from this, I'm going to call join game session. Now, we're not joining any sessions just yet. All we're doing is finding game sessions, and our callback should respond to it and print the name of those sessions out. So I'm going to compile and save this. Now, if you're using Unreal Engine Preview 2 or Unreal Engine 5.0, the latest official release, I've had some students have issues finding sessions. And a fix to this is to take the session settings and set the Boolean use lobbies. I'll move the mouse cursor. Use lobbies if available equals true. So if you can't find sessions, try setting this on your session settings. Now, you might see red squiggles, but that's okay. As long as you can compile, you're fine. So if you can't find a session, try this, compile your code, and you may want to regenerate the modules for your plugin as well, just to be safe, and then give it a try. And again, if you have trouble creating sessions, open your default engine.ini and make sure you have this line, be init server on client equals true in Preview 2 or Unreal Engine 5.0, the latest official release. You'll want this. Now, after saving my entire project, I'm going to package this up so I can play test it from another machine. So I'm going to go to Platforms, Windows, and Package Project. Now, here's my previous build. I'm going to delete it and simply click Select Folder from within my Build folder. And I'm now packaging this project. So now that I've finished packaging this project, I can zip it up and stick it on my Google Drive so I can download it from my other machine. Now here's my project folder. I'm going to open the Build folder and simply zip this up. So I'm going to right-click, send to a zipped folder, and once I'm finished compressing, I can stick this right here on my Google Drive. Now, I have my previous build here. I'm going to simply remove that by right-clicking and choosing Remove. That way there's no confusion as to which packaged project will be here, and I'm going to upload it. So now that I've uploaded the zipped up project and I've gone over to my other machine and downloaded it, I went ahead and extracted the project on that machine and launched the game from there and hit the 1 key. So remember, when we hit the 1 key, we're creating a game session. So I've created a game session on my other machine, and I'm going to join it from this machine. So here's my build folder. I'm going to open the Windows folder and simply launch menusystem.exe. And we see that we found subsystem Steam. Now I can press the 2 key. And there we see the ID and the username of the Steam account running on my other machine. So we have indeed found the other session. Excellent. So now that we've found the session that we created, we're ready to join that session. So in the next video, we're going to get the IP address to join from that found search result and join the game session so that we can be in the same level on 2 different machines and playing the game together. So in this lecture, we created a Blueprint callable function called joinGameSession, and we also made a delegate of the type fOnFindSessionsComplete delegate. We also created a callback and bound it to this delegate. We then made an object of type fOnlineSessionSearch, and we made this a member variable so we could access it in our callback function. We passed in this session search with some search settings specified, and we called findSessions. And in our callback function, we accessed the search results in this fOnlineSessionSearch member variable in order to access the ID and username of the user that created that session. Great job! In the next video, we'll set up the functionality for joining this game session so we can get the 2 game instances playing in the same level. I'll see you soon.